Good evening, my friends. It's VJ Franz K. This is a demo session that I did earlier, number 7 in this series, but the camera angle wasn't quite right, so I decided I'm going to do it again. We'll do number 8. So right now, I'm going to save this under Discover. I'm going to share this, confirm, and you will be able to download and look at this if you want. See, the number is 0186. 0186. You can enter it in here. But what I'm going to do now is it's saved and I can change the things. I'm going to load up another blank session and then we'll start from the very beginning. Make something a bit like this, maybe a bit different. I made a few mistakes along the way, or things that I would prefer to redesign in a bit of a different way, so we'll do that. Alright, I'm going to load up slot number 3. Confirm, and here we go. It's ready. The first thing that we're going to do is use the Create column here. This allows us to create new synthesizer parts, modules, they call it, because this is a simulation of modular synthesis. So I'm first going to create an audio source. It's going to be a speaker. So it's a speaker, it's like a real speaker in real life, but there's no sound coming out of it. We're going to need a prime wave. Basically, I can select these by pointing one of my virtual reality pointers at it, and then pulling the trigger, and then it will create one of these objects. And then I can grab it using the secondary hand grip of my VR controllers. So the most basic thing I could possibly do is take a plug from the red and plug it to the green, and we have a sound. And I can turn the sound up in pitch. I can turn it down. So bass and treble, you can do that. Most basic possible thing you can do in Synth VR. We could also use this, the lab out. And if I were to connect this here, you'll hear it coming directly out of the... This is a direct connection to your computer speaker. So you could use this if you want the sound to not change. But I prefer to use the virtual speaker because it makes me feel like I'm in a room with real synthesizer gear. So when I turn my head, you'll hear it go from one side to the other. It's all based on my viewpoint as the viewer here. Now, this is cool, but not very interesting yet. So what else can I do? I can change the waveform here. It's a mixture. It's a mixture of these two waveforms. So you can choose 2 different shapes and then have this slide between those shapes. An interesting thing, and these can be considered 2 separate oscillators. So you can get a chord sort of sound beginning to form there if you want. But anyway, and I can, this acts as a volume knob, a simple volume knob, the gain. Gain is not volume, though. Remember that. All right. What else could I do? The next most simple thing would be to have a control source. And these are categories of devices that I could create. So I pull the trigger on one of these rows, and then I can pull the trigger to scroll left and right. I'm going to make a just LFO. So I will plug the output, the red goes into the green. And instantly I have some strange things happening here. The sound is bending up and down, slowly, sort of like a video game. And I can use different shapes. Starting to sound like classic arcade games, isn't it? And that is no coincidence, because classic arcade games will use simple sound generators like this. I could also use the FM, the frequency modulating. I'm modulating the frequency here. Classic computer sort of sounds, and of course, in those old movies where they had rooms full of computers, they were using modular synthesizers to make this sort of thing go on. And that's interesting, but it's not that interesting still. So, what could I do to make something more musical? Alright, well, the basic thing of music, you need time. You need time for the music to prime time. It is a time pulse generator here. So, if I were to do something with this, I could do like this. You can hear how it's sending out pulses. And in the modular synth world, you have your control voltages and your sound, but those two can kind of cross over. You can plug many different things into many other things and create things you would never expect. Sometimes ear-damaging things that you wouldn't expect. Anyway, so. And in fact, I guess I could bring out an audio modifier, the amp. The amp can be used to show what is happening, and it is one pulse of control voltage just beeping along there. But I could also do this and then reduce the level of that pulse by sending it through this lab amp. And it also has that little oscilloscope type screen, so that is cool. But still not very musical. So perhaps a sequencer. I could choose the lab seek or the prime pattern. I'm going to choose the lab seek because it is most simple at this point. So take this control of the pitch, this wire. That's the thing about modular synthesis, is you can wire almost anything into almost anything else. So I will send out the value, and then I'm going to connect, let's see, connect this, yeah, the clock speed. Yeah, alright, yeah, that's right. So the clock speed goes along here. So now, it does appear to be a simple kind of music, because it is creating these values. Oh, I see. Why is it not that musical? Because we still have this now a little bit of wavering there. It sounds kind of like an organ, doesn't it? Anyway, so now we have a simple song. It's not a very melodic, it's not a very pleasing to the ear sort of sound, but there it is. Interesting. Notice how these things are starting to pile up and it looks kind of messy. And of course, in the real synthesizer world, you need a rack with a power supply. You could have a power supply without a rack, but not that good of an idea. Create this rack. It's got 3 large rows of stuff. So now I can start fitting these things in. And just because we're used to reading from left to right, I'm going to put this prime time on the left and the center because it's kind of an important thing. And maybe I will put right here the prime wave. No, I'll put the sequence here just so we can remind that the time is flowing from over here. It goes into the clock. It's controlling the timing. And then we have the speaker. And I'll put this over here, and I have another speaker over here because we're going to have stereo sound. So then take this, I'll put this right here. I like to put things that are working together, I like to put them together if I can, though you don't have to. You can arrange them to your heart's content in any way you like. And my trademark with Synth VR has sort of been to arrange them in an artistic, geometric kind of way instead of just using these racks. But anyway, so now it's nice and organized. But what we don't have is more interesting sounds. I'm going to create a lab mix, which is, it's your DJ style, or not your DJ style, it's venue style sound mixer. And let's see. So then I plug this as one of the inputs. I'll put this in input number 2, and I'll send this one out to the right speaker, and I'll send this one out to the left speaker. So now everything is heard in stereo, even though we really don't have any reason to have it in stereo quite yet. But the 2 speakers are now arranged. Maybe I would like to add some drums, so I'm going to go to audio sources once again, and I'll pick out just drums. I'll add this right here. And these are divisions of time. They're sort of like, let's see. Actually, what I was going to do is use the trigger from this to trigger one of the drums. So if I press this, right, there's no sound on it yet. So that will go in here, one of the other channels. You can hear those kick drums. So this plays back drum samples. So I'm going to select now every time one of these is lit, it will send out a drum pulse, and I can adjust the tune, high pitch or low pitch. I can adjust the length from short, very short, to the full sample. I can adjust the start point as well. In this case, that's not a good idea because most of the kick drum is right at the beginning. And I can increase the transient, and that is how it's a way of increasing the impact of the sound, you might say. So I can pick out different sounds like that. But notice that if I don't have one of these trigger lights lit, it won't send out the value from this. So that is part of the way this lab seek works. I'm going to create another sound voice here, because if you want to have complicated music, you're going to need more than one voice. This time I'll use a more complicated sequencer. In the sequencing category, I'll pick out the prime pattern. And in fact, in order to get more timing signals out of that, I'm going to go into the utilities here, connection mods. I'm going to move over here. I'm going to pick out a split, and I'll put it down here. So then, notice the timing signal has been temporarily broken, but then connect that out and put it in here. One thing I can do is to switch these around. If I press the secondary button on my controller, then I will be able to change the color of these. So I'm going to use blue, as I have in some other of these other ones. Blue represents a control signal. So there it is. I'll also have this starting, making sure to start the thing. Oh yes, right. I don't have to just have to start it though, I also have to do the clock. Make everything run in the right way. And then take out the pitch connection. I'll make it another blue wire. Plug it into the pitch here. And then take this out. I'll use orange for audio. And put in so here's this sequence. This one is more advanced. I can do more stuff with this. So I could use these sliders to make it stay at these points, at some of these points for longer than others. So I could create a complicated sequence that way. There's also this thing which selects major, minor, chromatic, or none. It puts the notes in a particular scale. Can be handy if you want to create more traditionally musical music. All right. This appears to be the bass now, so I'm going to sometimes what I'll do is how have I wired this up before? I'll use the purple for the bass. And I'll use the pink for the treble. And I still have another thing on the mixer here. What is another kind of audio source that I could use? Just the noise. Just noise. It's just noise. Then so that is pretty ordinary, the noise. And maybe if I have a sequencer here, see another sequencing lab sequence here, and this is going from here once again, another timing pulse to the clock. Going along here, got different values. So it's changing the color of the noise from white to pink noise or other types of noise. That isn't much of a change though. It still mainly sounds like a bunch of flowing water, or worse, static in my recording or something like that. I'll use an effect. We have a few effects. Hopefully we get a lot more effects later on, but these are a good set of them. Actually, audio modifiers. Here it is, the prime filter. So then I'm going to take this, connect this to the output of the filter, and then notice we've just been adding on to the same signal the whole time. So now my noise is going through a filter. Yes, it does sound like outer space wind or something like that. But now instead of having this modulate that, I could do this. Take this and have this move the filter. Starting to sound like a simple drum beat, isn't it? I can use this clock multiplier to make it go faster than the rest of the signal. That is interesting. So some of these If I wanted to make that even more like a drum beat, I could, let's see. Ah, here it is. The envelope. So I could put this into the envelope. Then no attack, no sustain, but wait a minute. Just add that there. Got something which is kind of like a drum beat. Extra drum beat elements there. Perhaps another drum. In my audio sources, pull out another drum. Not quite space for it in the rack here. I'll just pretend it fits. I'll have this one coming from one of these divider signals here. But now I'm running out of space on this mixer. So luckily you don't have to go out and buy more stuff in this virtual world here. I'm going to have something acting as a drum mixer. So instead of this one, I'm going to have this one going into this, and then I'll have this one, this output going into this. So again, it is back to normal, but now we're able to make more drums. So there is a very simple drum beat. This lets you browse through different kinds of samples, and this picks one out of that folder of samples. Starting to sound like another industrial sequence, isn't it? So I can turn this down a bit so that that noise, that crash snare sound is not overpowering the mix. Oops, I picked the wrong color of cable, actually. And to put bass in channel number 2, treble in channel number 3. I'm forgetting. So I'm changing. Still not a very melodic sounding sequence, but oh well. Just showing you guys the process here, and other people have done it already in their way, and I'll just show you in my way. That'll be that. Everyone has a different learning style, a different way of thinking about things, so it can be useful to get several opinions or approaches. And you're always going to be learning something from other people, because everyone understands something better than you in some way. Alright. This is starting to look or sound fairly complete for the demo, but suppose I want to remember what I am doing in my rack before it gets any more complicated. I can pick this note to self out here, and I could label this row. I'll say select there, drums, right here. Use the grip to grab this keyboard, and then press return. Now put this label right here, and you can change the size of the label. Oh, let's hope it doesn't crash. It's about to crash. Alright, well, I hope you enjoyed watching Synth Demo number 8. And I will get back to you soon with more stuff with Synth VR. Thank you very much for watching.